What's up, my good peoples? Welcome to the Be Transformed podcast, where we're talking about ideas that stimulate wholesome thinking unto identity, purpose, vision, and action. I am James Anderson, and with me is Logan Eaton and Kyle Enteman, my good bros.
Hey there.
How is it? How's it?
Excellent.
How's it?
Good to
Great.
be back, James.
How you going?
Good. It's good to be back home.
Good.
Where were you?
Guatemala.
Ah,
A lot of different places. Yeah.
Wow.
Surprised you didn't know.
right
Yeah,
next
I don't
door
think
to
anybody knew you were. I don't
Puerto
think you
Rico?
knew you were going.
Yeah. Sometimes I like to take random flights out of the front of the airway.
In your head?
Yeah, in my head too.
Sure.
But
It's
yeah.
cheaper that way.
It's cheaper. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's
Mm.
great.
Yeah. It was pleasant weather. Yeah. No, I was just at home, Northwest
Toledo?
Ohio. Yeah.
The old Toletes.
Yeah.
Well,
Busy finishing up some yoga teacher training.
Boom. Is this the last one?
We just had
This
the
week?
last one this last week.
Oh, and this is like the inauguration, graduation.
where
You
everyone
gotta
teaches
teach.
a class.
Good
So
job.
if any of the viewers want to show up for a class on purpose, then come on
Yeah,
out.
It'll have already had happened by the time this goes out.
Yeah,
But yeah,
Sunday at 5?
2:30.
2:30.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
close.
So-
That's Puerto Rico time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Be a good way to give back. You know, show some yoga moves, while at the same time sending a message of hope and vision and purpose to people.
Bam, baby.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Thank you.
How long's the class?
Just about 1 hour.
About
Is it every
1
week
hour.
now?
No, it's just going to be this one time.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
With
who,
that
who
group.
knows what will happen. But
This is for the curriculum that you were doing?
yeah, it's part of like just one of the requirements to, went through it. So
But there could
I
be more in
teach-
the future if you pass and get your license?
there's no licensure stuff. But
Oh.
I mean, if people seem to like it, they might give me another chance. If not, then it is what it is.
We could make you a certificate.
You can make me one if you want. Yeah.
Cut out
Or
a piece
just
of a
mine.
cereal
Yeah.
box?
Yeah, certified.
It's a 200-hour teacher training type thing, but there's no I don't know, there's no National Alliance of Yoga,
Of stretching.
teachers. So it's going to be epic.
200 hours.
It's
But
felt
who-
like it's
But,
been
but
like,
who's counting?
who's counting? I don't
Felt
know.
like it was like
weekends flew by
600,
real
yeah.
fast. Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome.
No, that is good.
So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Do you have to pre-register?
No, you just come.
Just come.
You can if you want to,
Be weird.
show it on the itinerary that you're going to show up, but other than that, I mean, you can check in before, but
Oh,
it's not a
okay.
big deal.
Has anybody, pre-registered?
I believe so. Yeah, I had
Wow.
a couple people. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Real nice.
yeah.
Real nice.
Asked my dad if he wanted to go. He's done yoga before. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
What's the old yoga attire there? You wear socks or shoes, or
That's a great question because I wouldn't know.
You can wear whatever you
you
want.
can wear whatever you
Yeah,
want.
but typically barefoot.
Barefoot.
And shorts,
Whoa, that's
yeah,
weird.
and t-shirt. Yeah.
Logan.
I mean, whatever you'd wear to the gym, pretty much.
Mm.
Yeah.
Just no shoes or socks.
Preferably no shoes at least. Yeah. You never done it before?
I don't
Have
think I've
you-
ever done yoga.
You never done a class before, James?
No.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if I've ever done any exercise class before.
No. Well, I can guarantee it won't be your average yoga
It
class.
won't be your average.
I'll try to spice
Not
it up.
your average. That's
Let's
a
try to
good.
spice it up.
That's
Not your average yoga class.
It might be your last one though.
Yeah.
So far from average, yeah. That it was extraordinary.
Nice.
Yeah.
Bam. Nice.
What about you guys?
Yeah, what's happening over there?
What's crackling?
Not
You have any
much.
cracklings lately?
No, I threw the
cracking?
rest of those out.
Oh, dear.
I don't
Get
think
a
they
little
were.
old.
Yeah, you can only last them for a couple days.
Mm.
I just threw them out.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think all that pig fat would cure him for a while.
Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, they started to taste weird anyway, so
Yeah.
threw them right out.
Tell the
Yeah,
farmer
just
that you did
finishing
that.
up a
Or
meatloaf. Huh?
did you say put them in meatloaf?
No, I'm just finishing up a meatloaf right now.
Oh,
Mm.
wow.
Yeah.
Turkey or regular beef?
Beef and pork. I mixed some beef and pork together. Yeah, it's
Great.
pretty good.
Beef and crackling together.
I love a good meatloaf.
Me too.
You like
Good protein.
ketchup?
Uh,
Ketchup?
yeah, there was the recipe had like a sweet and sour sauce
Mm.
to it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of did that and added some hot sauce to it.
Ooh,
It turned out okay.
cool.
Turned out all right.
Very nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
They just kind of shape that into what you
Shape
want
it into
to.
whatever shape you want. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then,
Do you have a loaf pan?
Not a loaf pan. I just put it in a regular glass.
Just like a rectangle.
Yeah, pan. Yeah, rectangular. But I
Sweet.
made the meatloaf in a heart shape.
Oh, classy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very classy.
Yeah. You never know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nice. Yeah. That's cool.
Hey, you like
They make a
meatloaf?
lot of those cookerwares, whatever pans in different shapes.
Yeah, they do.
So you could do a lot of things.
You could get a muffin
Your
tray
loaf.
and make miniature.
You can do that.
meatloaf.
Yeah.
Oh man, they just
Yeah.
Good.
little
Yeah.
swoopy on top and just eat it like
Yeah.
a yeah. Oh.
Ketchup? You like ketchup on it?
Yeah, I do
Oh,
like
yeah,
ketchup
it's
on
good.
it. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Other than that, not much. Working, reading.
Yeah, you reading anything delicious lately?
Just saw me 107 today.
And
It's
what
talking
it
about these guys being on a boat, and the storm came, and they it sounded like they were merchants, and they knew exactly like where they were going, what they were doing. They were dialed in on the journey. But then the storm came, and they cried out to God, and then everything. So it was almost like, I don't know, the storm came, and they almost like they remembered God, and then they cried out to God, and then everything got calm, and the piece that I remembered was like God brought them exactly where they wanted to go, like the destination that they desired. He brought them into that haven. I think it said like the safe haven that they exactly where they want to go. So yeah, it was a good song. Talked about like the beginning was like, remember your story and remember to tell it to people, and then it goes through like different things like remember when you were remember when you acted foolishly and you did this and this and this, and then this happened, then you cried out to God, and everything, you know, and God, you cried out to God, and things, you know, I don't know, I don't want to say like things just got fixed, but like it was you got back on the right course. So it went through different ones, and one of them was a boat on the ship or on the sea, and it was good. I liked it. Yeah, 107, Psalm 107. It's a good one.
Bam.
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly where you wanted to go. But a storm came, but you still got there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still got there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like even though it seemed like the course was going to be destined to
Yeah, it was like,
throw it
yeah.
off, they still pushed through it.
Yeah,
Still got there.
right. The writer said everyone was at their wits' end on the boat, and they
Mm.
just cried out to God, but then everything grew calm,
Mm.
and they finished the course. But
Yeah.
it was good. 107.
Yeah. Rough seas aren't always a sign that you're going in the wrong direction. I mean, for
Yeah.
Jonah it was,
Mm-hmm.
but but that was a deliberate
He
about
was-
face.
Yeah, he went in the whale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did. He still ended up on his shore, but yeah, I was. There was a quote in the book I was reading called. It said, "Oh, here's this other one. This is kind of funny, but this was a Russian proverb. It said, before you go to war, pray once. Before you go on the sea, pray twice. Before you get married, pray 3 times."
I've never done
Probably
any of
pretty
those
true.
things.
Yeah. Probably pretty true.
But yeah. But then the other quote there was that smooth seas don't produce skillful sailors.
Mm.
And just the concept that just because.
Oh yeah, you told me that one.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Just because you wind up in some trouble doesn't mean you should turn around and quit, right? It's the people who learn how to sail through the storms that are the people who become skillful, grow in experience and ability. It's different to just go out on a day, nice sunny day, calm, and just hang out in the harbor. That's one thing, and it's another thing to sail across the ocean for months on end,
Yeah.
through all kinds of different environments and whatnot. But yeah, smooth seas don't produce skillful sailors. I was thinking about that when I was a little bit hot and bothered myself. And I just started thinking about this concept of like, shut up. It's just like, that concept that it's like, it doesn't, just because it gets hard or it gets uncomfortable, you got to deal with this, you got to deal with that, and you're getting fed up with this and fed up with that. It's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The reason why you have resolve is so that when you go through these instances, you actually go through them and start, instead of running from them. It's like, again, it's not a sign. Your situations and circumstances are not always a sign that you're going in the wrong direction. If you're out heading out and you run into a roadblock, that doesn't mean you quit. It just means you figure out how to get around it. It just brings in back the idea of what commitment actually is and what perseverance is, and how when you said, I'm getting there, I'm going to the destination, then whatever obstacles I face, even if I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this, and then you go do that, you're like, oh, that didn't work, right? You're like, well, that doesn't mean you should stop. That doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you have to continue to work it out. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was something I was thinking about
Yeah.
earlier this week.
Yeah, and it builds your trust too. Like once you get through that, you make it to the next point, the checkpoint. Then when that comes again, you're going to get through it. Otherwise, you don't ever get out and do something. You never get through those things, and you don't know. You're always fearful when they come, and then you always turn back, and you always keep turning back. So trusting to just go through the storm, wall, whatever.
Well, it is. Let's say Paul says, "Rejoice in your struggles."
Sure.
I think that's which can be challenging when you're going through them. But because testing produces perseverance, something like that. Yeah. So that's one I try to go back to when I'm feeling like, oh man, what am I gonna do, or how am I gonna do this, or it's just like putting one foot in front of the other, honestly.
Yeah.
And like even when you're feeling like just continuing on that kind of that cultivation process of planting the seeds, and it might not feel like things are moving forward, or you're caught up in your head about all these other anxieties and fears you've created, but you just try to keep on moving.
Yeah. I
think once you have that vision or purpose that we talked about, you can go back to that. And just keep. Okay, all right, I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking about that, the concept of where, think and act beyond how you feel. Because you could feel down in the dumps, or you could feel grumpy or this and that. But it's like, if you want to get out of that emotional haze because what happens is, like, in that emotional haze, your body becomes the mind. And so you think thoughts based upon how you feel. You act and speak to other people based upon how you feel. And if you feel like crap, then that's how you treat and act and whatever. But it's like when you recognize you're in that and you're having a hard time getting out of it. But the idea is that if you can start thinking thoughts and taking action against how you feel, like, so essentially you kind of cast off your emotions and you act, you choose how you're going to act instead of, being enslaved by how you feel. But so think and act beyond how you feel. But yeah, just like you're talking about, like, you just keep moving forward. It's like, well, this feels like whatever, but I know this is where I'm going. I know this is what I'm supposed to do. So I'm just, Even though
Mm-hmm.
it's a little dark right now, I'm going to keep jamming.
Yep.
Yeah. There's that Psalm 23, and David's talking about, he's like, I go through the valley of the shadow of death. He's like, but I don't fear any evil, for God's with me, right? His rod and his staff are with me. And then he's like, he sets up a table. God sets up this table, and in the presence of all of my enemies. So it's like in this dark place, in this place where he's surrounded by all his enemies, and God sets up a table right in the middle of kind of all this mayhem. And he's like, he anoints my head with oil, my cup overflows. He's like, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. But it's just interesting to just like in the midst of all the whatevers, this is possible, right? Where your internals, your mind, your thoughts, your emotions do not have to be affected by the outside circumstances, right? Because those things don't always dictate the truth. They can be whatever they are, but that there could be stuff opposing you. But when you're in God and moving in a direction based upon the kingdom, you'll have opposition, but that opposition doesn't have to change who you are. Like you don't have to mirror what other people maybe are saying to you or the way they're acting. It's possible to be unaffected by your outside environment and your inside environment be so legit that you end up turning a hostile environment on the outside into like a tamer environment.
Mm-hmm.
All because you didn't get swept up. But it's a fun picture where God's just like, hey man, let's hang out. It's like, oh crap, this is really scary. Like there's all this stuff around us. He's like, no man, let's just hang out. Let's just talk, just focus on me. He's like, don't worry about it. And that's just like kind of gets back into that trust.
Mm-hmm.
Like the disciples were in the boat. Jesus is asleep. It's storming. Everybody's freaking out. The water is coming in. He's like, oh my gosh, we are going to die. Jesus wakes up and he's like, dude, why are you guys freaking out?
Yeah.
Calms the storms down. He's like, don't you guys have any faith?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a perspective that's available.
Right. You can live that way.
Yeah. It's possible. It's not so abstract that it's so unattainable. It's like it's there.
Yeah.
It was like that, the father with the demon-possessed son. Jesus comes up into that situation, and the father said, hey, the disciples couldn't heal him. But then Jesus was like, how long am I going to stick with you? Like, I don't know what he said, but like something to the extent of like lack of faith. They're just like, these people who just don't get it. Just meaning that there's this faith, there's this trust, there's this relationship and this intimacy that's available.
Yeah.
And I think just the knowledge of that can increase your faith in to believe that that's actually possible. Mm-hmm. So I was just thinking about this concept that there's like, I don't know, there's like levels of faith, but I don't know if that's right. It's not like level 1, level 2, but more like there's like depths of faith where or maybe like a maturing of faith where like your roots just kind of go down deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's like just continuing to hold that knowledge, think about these thoughts, think about who God is. It's like it causes your faith to grow. Cause like sometimes it's like I can hear somebody talk and I can see their perspective and I can see that it's wrong. But the reason I can see that is because I can relate to it or have had that in the past. But then it's like I think about however strong I am now and however mature I am right now, I know that there's somebody else who could hear me in ways that I talk about what I'm doing. They'd be like, they could see the same thing in me. I just like, there's just these levels of faith. But I think as you continue to marinate in that knowledge and in the truth, that faith just continues to go deeper and wider.
Yeah.
Taller.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. And sometimes you think there's a swarm of bees flying around your head, but there's really not. You're just swatting at nothing.
Right. Oh, I like that. Yeah. Very
And you're
true.
just missing like the life that you could have with the reality that there's no
Right.
bees there.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
that is.
Sometimes you can get caught in that mindset though.
Sure.
You think there's bees trying to sting you, and you're just swatting at nothing.
Mhm. You're just
Yeah.
creating
Yeah,
stuff up
you
in your
create
head.
things in your head. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Like I said, like, that's where I think having that going back to, sometimes it's like, well, I'm just going to keep on, even if I do fall, I'm just going to keep on trudging this road. I see the vision, and you wake up or something's not going your way, or you're dealing with something, and you're just like, all right, well, sometimes like just doing something, just doing it to keep yourself busy. Like, I find that
yeah.
just keep going,
Yeah.
Staying busy can be important too,
It's
just to
something.
keep yourself like occupied during a trial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of like in a little bit of emotional weirdness. I just had an interaction with a customer and whatever, and it just kind of made my mind go sideways. And the whole time I'm just trying to try not to hang out in it. But it's like, I don't know. There's just been a little bit of this emotional haze that has kind of stuck around these last couple of weeks. And then just, I don't know, today I was just like, I'm not going to let this bullcrap run my life. Like, my emotions don't get to dictate the quality of my life. Yesterday I had the thought, I was like, oh, that really wasn't that great of a day. I never have that thought because I don't live like that. I choose how I want to act and how I want to think and what I want to do. Like, if something happens, we fix it and we move on. But I was hung up in like this past moment and just kind of kept it going on the projector screen of my mind.
Yeah.
Right. And today I was just like, screw that, dude. I am not a slave to my emotions. I'm not, because like there was a temptation was, just go sit down and watch a show or something. I said, I'm not going to tap out and numb out just because I have a weird emotion. My life and my purpose and my goals, they don't automatically stop just because I'm in like a weird, mental state. Screw that junk.
Yeah.
I'm taking my life back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Heck yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And here we are again.
Emotionals.
What?
Is it just saying the emotionals can be I don't know, it could just be sometimes that stuff pops up especially when you're like moving somewhere, like you're just trying to go somewhere. It's almost like the devil or Satan knows that like you're okay, he's stepping up now, he's moving, he's going somewhere, and it's just like there's just like stuff thrown at you even mentally. It's just like I would have never worried about that, but because I'm going somewhere now, it's almost like you're hyper aware of all these things trying to block you from going somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah. True.
I've just
Definitely.
kind of become aware of that. Like when you decide to go somewhere or do something, you start to become hyper aware of all these little things so it's even more important. Not more important, but it's critical to just have that faith, I think, when you decide to step out, get going, put the car in gear. Because things, I mean, whether you realize it or not, I think it's just that hyper awareness of everything trying to slow you down.
Yeah, I think sometimes too. It's just like, but it's like, it's a little bit of like the testing, but it's like, all right, well, some of this stuff will cause just whatever to kind of rise up in you. It's like, all right, but I can handle this.
Yeah.
Like, where you go maybe into an old framework of thinking where it's like, oh yeah, you get so hung up and get emotional about it, and that just kind of runs into the emotional cycle. But it's like, instead, it's like, no, I can handle this. I can communicate. I can do this. It's like, this is just such a small thing. It's like, so yeah, maybe these things do come, but then you handle it though. Mm-hmm. Like you use your maturity, you use your knowledge, you use your wisdom, but then you don't get all hung up on it. You just let's freaking get dialed in. Mm-hmm. Just like you were talking about, Kyle, just talking about re-upping that vision. Remembering, no, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing. It's like you're getting close. Mm-hmm. It's like, don't grab out now.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't grab out now. Just keep swimming.
And I think if you keep on, like you said, keep on swimming, you'll keep seeing the opportunities to keep going towards your vision, or little things will come up and they'll renew your vitality. I really think like because you'll go through days where you're like, gosh, man, nothing's, or how am I going to do this? And then you'll like see like something will come up, be like, okay, cool. And just those little gifts of renewing that vitality are helpful for real.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, that is real. But I almost wonder, like, how like, that encounter I had with, I don't know, just a couple people. It's just like, how many more of those are out there, though? It's like, how many more, like, sweet encounters, like, stuff that's, like, I haven't even thought of. You could just run into somebody and be like, that was, like, amazing. Like, how many of those are out there? It's just like, are those readily available? Just like, it's just that kind of thought of, dude, I dare you to go just all in, get after it.
Yeah.
I did an article this week on the talk of smooth seas don't produce skillful sailors. And I was talking about this, because talking about commitment a little bit. And I was talking about this time we were at Lake Michigan. We were in Bear Dunes, and the water's like crystal clear. It's like looks like the Caribbean, but instead of the water being like 80 degrees, it's like 60 degrees. But I don't know what it is. But anyways, yeah, it's beautiful, right? But then off in the distance, you could see where it got deeper because it went from like that turquoise whatever to like dark blue. And so I convinced my brother-in-law. I said, hey, man, let's go swim out to the dark blue. And so we did. You're swimming out there, and I had some sandals on, and some short, my shorts, a shirt, and we were swimming out there, and you could see the bottom. Bottom's like 15, 20 feet down. But then like the further we got out there, it got like choppy. And then it's like the further you got out there, it's like there's no point of reference. So as it got choppy, it was hard to tell if there was a current, and it was hard to tell if I was like moving. I didn't know if I was making any progress in the direction I was going. So we kind of got out there, the dark blue from the shore looked like a, crystal clear line, but once you got out there, it's just kind of all blurred out. So anyways, we got far enough and turned around. But at this point, dude, I'm pretty tired. Sure. So I took my sandals, which floated. I shoved them underneath my shirt to give me a little buoyancy, but you start, swimming back, dude, and I'm just like, I'm feeling it.
Wow.
Yeah.
How far out were you?
I don't know.
Football field length?
We were I don't know. We were out there a little ways. But yeah, but it was just interesting because when you're out there on the water, you're 100% committed. Right? It's like there is in this moment, even though I'm tired and like I'm unsure if there's a current or not. So because of that, there's a certain amount of effort I have to put forth, because if I slow up on my effort, I could find myself falling backwards, and I don't want to be falling backwards. Sure. So there's I'm tired. You have to continue to keep pushing, but it's like the thing about the water is you can't just quit. You can't just give up. Like if you stop swimming, you'll find yourself underwater. It's like you have to keep going. But just that in contrast to just like our purpose and our vision and our goals, it's like sometimes on land you could find the convenience of like tapping out or let me just get distracted, let me numb out for a little bit, I'll come back. But it's like in this place in the water, I was so committed that there was no option but to keep going.
Yeah.
And it's just like, just thinking about that kind of commitment on land, though, like there is no other option. I'm so deep. It just doesn't matter. I'm just going to keep.
And there's a current, though. There's a real life current.
There is a real life current.
Huh. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
A life current?
Yeah, there's always a real life current, right? The TV, the social medias, I'm not saying those things are like evil, but like those things, if you give them enough, give them enough of your attention, they can pull you in
Mhm.
and start giving more and more time
Yeah.
to those things. Yeah, the current, just the thought of just living the average life, just
Mhm.
doing the job,
Mm.
doing the 40, just
Doing
getting
the
through the
40.
week.
Yeah.
Whatever
Right.
whatever it takes to get through the week, and whatever it takes to have fun on the weekend. The current, the current.
Yeah.
Don't
yeah.
get caught in the
Don't
current.
get caught in the current.
Yeah.
Get a jet boat.
Right. The current.
Mm.
Even when you're kind of like, whoa, flailing around. That
Especially
current kind of
especially when
like
you're flailing around.
kind of maneuvers you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're
into-
just floating around out there, it's just gonna push you wherever
Yeah.
the current's going.
Yeah.
Don't just float around.
Don't just float around.
Take your flip flops and stuff them in your pants and
Stuff
Start
them in your
sweating.
pants. Yeah.
Keep jamming.
I was thinking a fish didn't bite you, huh?
No.
Wow.
No.
Do you usually
There
get
was,
bit
like,
by fish?
No,
There was,
but
like,
it's
no
always a weird
sign of
fear of
fish.
me. No, you couldn't see him or anything down there.
No, man. Where we were staying right on the water.
Yeah.
And yeah, you go out way far, and you could walk out super far. But I would go out there, and I'd go out into the deep blue on the raft. I'd row out there. But dude, we never saw like one fish,
Wow.
and you could see in the water.
Not one fish. Huh?
Not one fish.
What season was it?
Apparently not fish season. I don't know.
Mm.
It was summer.
Oh, it was the equinox.
Yeah,
That probably did it.
prime
That's
meridian
probably
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So today we're talking about being sanctified.
Sanctification.
And to be sanctified means to be made holy and set apart for a purpose,
For a purpose.
which is everything we've been talking about thus far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was just thinking about this because there are some verses talking about being sanctified, and then there's some verses like as in like it's a process, but then there's some as in like no, you already are it, right? This concept of being made holy and then set apart for a reason. So in Hebrews 10:10 it says, by that will, talking about the will of God, we've been sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once and for all. And in 1 Corinthians it says, 1 Corinthians 6:11, but you were washed when you were sanctified and were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and by the Spirit of God. But then in in 1 Thessalonians, this is what we were reading last Sunday. He says, Paul says, may God himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through. May your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. The one who calls you is faithful, and he will do it. But this one in terms of being sanctified, it's like may you continue to be like through and through in your spirit, in your soul, in your body, right? But like this, I feel like this is like has to do with being transformed by the renewing of your mind. But I like what it said in the Amplified version. It says, now may the God of peace himself sanctify you through and through. That is, separate you from profane and vulgar things, make you pure, whole, and undamaged, consecrated to him, set apart for his purpose. And may your spirit and your soul and your body be kept complete and be found blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. Faithful and absolutely trustworthy is he who is calling you to himself for your salvation, and he will do it. Yeah, I was just thinking about this concept where it says, the one who calls you is faithful, and he will do it. And God didn't call us to something that was impossible, right? He doesn't call you to something without first giving you the capacity for it. You think about You think about Moses, and God was like, hey, man, I'm going to use you to deliver Israel. He's like, whoa, hey, I don't know about this, and God's like, oh, put your hand in your shirt, take it back out. Oh, it's leprous. He's like, oh, people don't listen to you. Show them this sign. He's like, oh, what do you have in your hand? The staff, put it down, becomes a snake, right? Like, God just brings all these solutions. He's like, no, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to use you. Jeremiah, God says, hey, you're a prophet to the nation. Jeremiah said, whoa, hey, I'm just a kid. He's like, no, nobody panic. He's like, I'm sending you. And he touches his mouth. And he's like, I just put my words in your mouth. It's like God doesn't call us to something without bringing the capacity. And it's like, to be made holy, right, is to receive what Jesus' sacrifice, right? It made us justified, which means to be declared righteous and in right standing, and then set apart for a specific purpose, not just for anything, but like to freaking do something.
And he will do it.
Yeah.
What was that?
That last part of that verse says, he's something and something, and then he will do it.
Oh, yeah. Who's going to do it? Yeah.
God.
Oh, God, yeah.
So, yeah, what was it? He is setting you apart as sanctified, giving you all the things that you need.
Right.
Can you just read that part one more time?
May God himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through.
Yeah.
May your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. The one who calls you is faithful, and he will do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good promise.
Right. Faithful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so this idea, right, that sanctified is made holy, bam, position, identity, this is who I am, and then set apart for a purpose, right? So we were talking about when you become born again, you become adopted into sonship, you become a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, and then at the same time you become an ambassador of heaven on earth. So to be sanctified, right, is fallen right in line with that. So I'm just pulling something up, right, Chundas. Yeah, so in Matthew 16, Jesus is asking the disciples. He says, hey, who do people say I am? They're like, oh, some John the Baptist, some Elijah, some this, some that. And he's like, who do you guys say I am? And Peter says, oh, you're the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And so then Jesus says, he says, on this rock I will build my church. But that word church in the Greek is ekklesia, which means called out ones. And ecclesia was actually the word used to describe the Roman Senate at the time. And so it's just interesting that the word God would use for his people was a governmental term.
A government term, yeah.
Yeah, so like the Senate, these were people who would hear the voice of Caesar, and then they would go into the kingdom or an empire. I'm not sure what an empire is. What's the difference between an empire and a kingdom? But anyways, they would then go out, and then they would fulfill his will, right? Caesar didn't have to get up off his throne to establish his kingdom or to expand it. He would send his delegates who came in his name, in his authority, and they would speak and act and do business on his behalf. But it's like that's the word that Jesus used for the church.
And what was that verse again?
What did it say?
Yeah.
It says, on this rock I will build my church. So they were talking about, I'd have to find it. I'd have to actually look it up. But
the word for church was ecclesia.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a compound word. The EK is out, and then ecclesia is ones. Something like that.
Interesting.
But yeah, it was a group of people who were essentially like rulers who went out and established the will of the king. And it's like that is us. on purpose. And so Paul writes to Timothy, and he shares a couple examples that I feel like relate to this to kind of bring in some understanding. And so in 2 Timothy 2:3-7, it goes like this. It says, this is Paul talking to Timothy. He says, join with me in suffering like a good soldier of Christ Jesus. No one serving as a soldier gets entangled in civilian affairs, but rather tries to please his commanding officer. Similarly, anyone who competes as an athlete does not receive the victor's crown except by competing according to the rules. The hardworking farmer should be the first to receive his share of the crops. Then he adds, reflect on what I'm saying, for the Lord will give you insight into all this. But just on the concept of like, so you're set out for a purpose, right? Like we literally have a purpose on this earth. And just like you're talking about, it's not to just work 40 hours, a week for 40 years to then save up to retirement, to then die and whatever, right? It's about establishing the kingdom of heaven on earth on purpose with the gifts and everything you have, right? You have so that you can accomplish what you're called to do.
What was the piece with the athlete? One more time.
He said, anyone who competes as an athlete does not receive the victor's crown except by competing according to the rules.
So he's saying, like, stay dialed in. Don't get caught up in the weird stuff going on in the societals. And then he's saying, follow your moral principle, follow my moral principles that I laid out in the Word. And then he's saying, like, work hard and you'll receive the fruit of your labor, kind of. So he's kind of giving different examples, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, dial in, play by the rules, follow my commands, work hard, and you'll reap the benefit. You'll reap the fruit.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And the first one was, and no one serving as a soldier gets entangled in civilian affairs, but rather tries to please his commanding officer.
Just stay connected. Stay dialed in and connected.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about the contrast between like a civilian and a soldier, right? Who can be citizens of the exact same country, but have totally different purposes. Like, what do you guys think are like some differences between a soldier versus a civilian?
I think soldier affairs probably revolve more around like protection duties and staying disciplined, staying in top condition mentally and physically. And civilian duties would, I don't know, might just be like do your job, do whatever task you have to do in the day or whatever like trade you have, just do your trade, and then you have your free time or whatever, and it's just what was the difference? Is that the question?
Yeah.
I think just the affairs are different. The soldier or affairs are they're always training for a time of war, and the civilian affairs are just kind of always just whatever comes next.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about those? Just the contrast or whatever.
Well, at least in the United States, soldiers, well, they make a decision to join the ranks, military ranks or whatever, and they follow orders, rank and discipline, and there's a structure to it.
There is. Yeah.
Civilians, not that there's not structure, but I feel like the soldiers are in line with a specific direction, and when an order is placed, they're willing to, or that's their duty to follow it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I was thinking how, like a soldier, right? They they carry out the will of the government. Like they're the tool that turns what the government says into reality. Yeah, it's just interesting. So in this instance, right, he says a soldier doesn't get caught up in civilian affairs, right? His focus is to please his commanding officer. But I was just thinking about that concept of it's like your purpose and your duty, right? That these things kind of insulate you from kind of distraction and chaos and, whatever, because it's like it brings about a reason to have focus. It brings about a reason to bring about change. It brings about a reason to have discipline. But he's like, yeah, don't get all caught, don't be getting caught up in all the hubbub of everybody else. It's like you've got a mission and a purpose. And it's like it's vitally necessary that you give your whole self to it. But it's interesting because I feel like that call is out there, for all of us. It's like understanding that that we're called on purpose to live on earth and establish the kingdom. Like we have the ability, the call, the power, the authority, the duties, and the responsibilities to carry out the will of God on earth. And it's like, you look at the farmer, right? He says the hardworking farmer should be the first to receive a share of the crops, and even the runner. It's like the athlete runs, but you don't get the victor's crown unless you run according to the rules. But I was just thinking about, it's like there's a reward for those who run on purpose. There's a reward that's created, you're not going to reap a harvest if you don't sow the seed, right? You're not going to get the victor's crown in a race if you don't give yourself wholly to it. Because, right, you got to prepare. You got to train. You got to eat. You got to sleep. You got to recover. Like you have to get into a structure and a regimen because you're giving your whole self to whatever it is you're participating in. If you actually want to win, you have to get dialed in and focused. And so, no, you're not going out to drink beer and eat pizza and eat 10 bags of jelly beans because they're delicious.
Yeah, they are. Right.
Right. But there's a reason for it, though. It's not just because, like, well, let's just be weird and have, let's just have this crazy sense of willpower. But it's like, it's unto something. There's a reason that you would have discipline. Mm-hmm. It's not just because it's the right thing, right? I mean, I think sometimes we'll look at being sanctified or being sanctified or this life just as like, oh, it's just one where you just kind of do whatever. And through the situations, circumstances, God reveals himself and, you become more holy, and that's good. Mm-hmm. But it's like, this life isn't just about, staying away from sin, right? This life is about like living and abiding and thriving and producing fruit and displaying the splendor of God on purpose. It's like if we get distracted in just this concept of, you just kind of float through life. I go to church. I love people. I do these things. All these things are good things. But it's just like there's something a little bit deeper out there.
True. Yeah, definitely. Like having that discipline that you talked about. Yeah. Like, I was thinking, so if you have the vision or what you want to do, having that discipline to do the things that will help you to get to that point. And maybe it's physical exercise, maybe it's reading more, taking care of yourself, reaching out to people. I don't know, there's like a lot of disciplines you can do that will strengthen you, like a soldier would do for prepping himself for battle. Or you're doing disciplines as a soldier, not just physical but mental, that align you with things.
Yeah, that's a good point. Mm-hmm. Just like, because there's the training involved. Like there's like the actual like books and tests, and like there's knowledge to learn, and then there's like tactics, and strategy. Right. And then you go out and you practice these things that you're learning, right? But it's like, that's how you become skillful. It's like, you learn what you need to learn, and then you start getting put into the environment and you practice it so you know what it's like, so that you know how to handle it, so that it's like you prepare yourself to succeed. Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just talking about being set apart for purpose, right? Jesus says, "As the Father sent me, so I send you." Well, Jesus was the exact representation of the Father.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus went around, and everybody he prayed for got healed. Everybody, who was possessed got delivered. Anybody he wanted to raise from the dead came to life. And Jesus says, "As the Father sent me, so I send you." We talk about how Jesus said, it's my food and it's my drink to do the will of him who sent me. It's like, I only do what I see the Father doing. I only say what I hear him saying. He's like, I came here for this purpose, and this is what I'm after. It's just having the knowledge of what it is that your life is about is vitally necessary.
And that's where you talk about the renewing, the transforming of the mind from 40 hours a week so I can make my money to get this car, which isn't bad, but working not just for the money, but for greater, building something bigger,
Yeah.
At least that's how I say, like, building that unique vision or purpose that is within you.
Yeah. I think it is bad if you're neglecting your passion, if you're neglecting what you believe. Like, working 40 hours, saving up some money to buy a car, sure. But if you're doing that at the same time, neglecting what you know you should be doing, or what you, I don't know, just having that the potential to have an impact on the world, leave a legacy and all that. I think it is bad when you just neglect that so that you can have the car and the complacency of the 40-hour a week job. I think that is a negative thing. I think your life is I don't know, you're living at 4% potential.
Sure.
Just to throw out a random number.
So yeah, I mean, we can say like, oh, it's not bad to want a car, but it is. It is bad if you're doing that while neglecting the things that you want, or the things that you know that you need to be doing in this life, I guess. I don't know.
Sure.
Because I've heard that a lot in church and everything. It's like, oh, it's not bad to want these things and have these things and blah, blah, but in reality, it kind of is. I mean, unless you're...
Well, it just depends on where your motivations are at.
Right.
Having stuff isn't the problem.
Right. Yeah, doing it with that doing things just for by the motivation of, okay, just because I want this, I guess, not because this is what I was born to do. Doing it just because I want to have this car or this image, right? I guess that's what I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, if you're chasing after this other stuff, like you said, and purposely neglecting everything else, then yes, your mind parts are up your butt.
That sums it up. That's what I was saying.
But yeah, I mean, here, so going on in 2 Timothy, after he says, reflect on what I'm saying, he says, remember, Jesus Christ raised from the dead, descended from David. This is my gospel for which I am suffering, even to the point of being chained like a criminal. But God's word is not changed. Therefore, I endure everything for the sake of the elect, right? For the people, that they too may obtain the salvation that is in Christ Jesus with eternal glory. Here's a trustworthy saying. If we die with him, we will also live with him. If we endure, we will also reign with him. If we disown him, he will also disown us. If we are faithless, he will remain faithful, for he cannot disown himself. And he says, keep reminding God's people of these things. Then warn them not to talk about nonsense. But yeah, I was just thinking about that. It's just, if we die with him, we will also live with him. If we endure, we will also reign with him. If we disown him, he will also disown us. Right? If we are faithful, faithless, he'll remain faithful because he can't stop being himself. You know, but Jesus talked about it. He said, hey, man, if anyone denies me before man, I will deny him before my Father. But anyone who proclaims me, you know, before men, I will also proclaim before my Father. There is definitely a distinction between living in the kingdom and not living in the kingdom. But it's not about stuff this or that, you know, is this stuff bad or how much is that, or how much stuff is this bad or good or whatever. But it's the motivations.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, man, you can do the right things with the wrong motivations, and that junk will jack you up. That's how you get burnt out, beat up, jacked up, right? Yeah. Right, because sometimes we just get caught up in this thing called sin and give it kind of all kinds of power. But you think, okay, well, here's all the things I know not to do, and you spend all your energy trying to not do these things. And it's like, but if all you know is what not to do, you don't know enough. Like, because if what not to do is a malfunction, which means like things literally don't work well. Like there's so much friction or so much, the parts just don't work together that it causes malfunction, dysfunction, and then it breaks. So if all you know is what not to do, you don't know enough, because if we're not supposed to do one thing, that means you are supposed to do another thing. But it's not just because it's like, here, you got to do what's right. No, it's because it's literally a function. It literally will benefit you to do it because it then works.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because sometimes, you know, you get focused, you'd be like, oh, man, you guys need to stop having sex, you know, you can't have sex before you're married. Well, why? And then, I don't know, it's just a sin. Well, you don't, right? There's a purpose and a reason, though, for marriage. Like, marriage is literally a reflection of Christ and the church, right? And you having babies outside of marriage creates this massive malfunction where you got single parents, you got people over here, and everybody's jacked up, broke down, beat up. Why? Because it's a malfunction. Because there's literally function in marriage. There's something so epically beautiful about marriage. But if all we know is, hey, man, don't have sex, but you don't have a good enough reason to not get into it, then you'll never, you know, you just do whatever you want. There's a reason. I'm telling you, the kingdom of heaven has a reason to actually get into it. There's a purpose. It's not just, hey, if you do this, you're going to hell. If you don't not do that as much, maybe you'll get into, you know, it's just like, shut your face. There's a reason why God created the world and mankind, man, and it wasn't just for a sucky, poopy, cow patty kind of life and mentality, man. It was for the glory, man. Over and over, he said something about somewhere. But having it with glory, being sanctified with glory, showing up at the end with glory, being conformed into his image with ever increasing glory. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, what do you guys think?
Powerful.
Yeah, it's just not. Yeah, I was trying to find a acronym for or a something for to explain like that thing where like you focus so much on not doing something instead of focusing on what should be done.
Do it.
Yeah, it's almost like I don't know. I was trying to think of a metaphor for that, but I couldn't. But it's true. It's you almost fall into that thing that you're trying not to think about. What can even just the anxiety of that can screw you up. Just having that anxiety about it can screw everything up.
Yeah.
And cause the gears to start clashing that should be operating normally. But yeah, it's interesting. It's extremely interesting how I'd like to see like how like a day's worth of focus breaks down into and like what you focus on.
Got way off track there. Yeah.
Well, it's like, I mean, are you focusing on these stupid things
Sure.
that are like that don't have any value or don't have any like or aren't getting you anywhere?
Right.
Where the gears are just like constantly just like the gear. There's not even any gears left. It's just flat things. Yeah, I don't know. I just, it's probably insane, like how much we think about that stuff, and it really, it's just like how much is actually out there to be grasped right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's easy to get like twisted into that mindset of I shouldn't do this, or I can't do this, or God's gonna hate me, or somehow dislike me or something if I do this. And it's like, from my understanding, like that's like impossible. Like you talked about the sanctification, like we're like in His image, and to walk around with that fear mindset is very detrimental. Not that we should sin, but we shouldn't sin just because we know of the glory that who we are, and like keeping our bodies like temples, and realizing like that's the vehicle that is going to get us to that greater purpose. And we know we have free will. We can distort it and sin and twist it all we want, but we have that choice. But choosing not to is what will get us to the sweet spot that we want to be in.
Yeah.
You can get to that, and you can still do whatever you want with your life, but there's having that dedication towards that purpose and why you're on this planet can help give you that motivation not to do those whatever behaviors. But walking around with I can't do that, I shouldn't do that, oh my gosh, I just did that, oh, it's the end of the world, blah 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 blah. It's like, no, that's just going to cause you more distortion up in your head.
Yeah.
And trying to see the goodness, like it is, like why we're here, like the goodness of it. Like there's a true goodness and beauty all around us that we can distort easily. At least I can.
Yeah, well, I think, so to be sanctified means to be made holy, right? So that it disqualifies any of these thoughts where it's like, well, I'm not good enough, or I'm just a human, or I'm just this. No, you've been made holy, and then you are set apart for a specific purpose. And it was the purposes of God.
Yeah, one of the common thoughts I used to have was like, I should hate myself more to feel closer to God, or to feel God's love more. I should hate myself more, or try to make things harder for myself more to try to feel closer to God or feel God's love. And I think that's pretty common. I think, especially in the church, where like I heard something on the radio yesterday about one of these well-known like TV preachers or radio preachers or whatever, book authors or whatever. He was saying like when like he was saying like something about focusing on all our shortcomings when you feel when you feel like you're distant from God or something, focusing on all our shortcomings and failures.
That you should.
So, yeah. And then to realize your
wrong.
own inadequacies and all that stuff about like, and I was just thinking about that. It's like, man, I mean, you're not moving anywhere though. You're not maturing in your faith. You're not that. I don't know how that can get you closer to God if your perspective of yourself is so messed up, because that's not the perspective that God has of you. So there's disalignment there. But I just think, one of those negative things is like to think like you can focus on how bad you are and how much you want to hate yourself because you think that will make God love you more or something. But that was just one of the negative thoughts that I used to focus on a lot.
Yeah.
That I think is common.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, so God proved His love for us, right, by sending Jesus, who while we were sinners died for us on the cross, right? But then it's like, okay, now that you're redeemed, like
sanctification.
He hates you.
Sanctification disproves all of those theories.
Right.
And all of those strategies to get closer to God, or to realize God's adequacy and our inadequacy. Sanctification completely disrupts all that.
Yeah. I heard recently, and it went, God, it ended with God uses you God does stuff through you in spite of you, or God does stuff in spite, not like in the sense it's like you mess up and this and that, but God still uses you in spite of you. And I'm just like, that's cow patties like smeared all over the wall. This concept of like, you suck, but then God will somehow still use you because he's so good, but you so suck. Well, if he's so, look, what he did was literally so good that it brought about actual transformation. People want to hang us. If when you get so stuck and all you know is a little bit about salvation and all you know is like, okay, if I just got to stop sinning, but I can't freaking figure out how to stop sinning, but that is my life. Well, I'm just no good. And then the only environment you hang out with is one that says, well, you know, we're not whatever. We just kind of love and this, that, which is good. You know, people are like, well, we just like to love people and this and that, but you know, we're just not that great, which whatever. But it's like, dude, you'll never create mass movement. You'll never have epic, freaking influence like Jesus had, whom he said, as the Father sent me, so I send you. And we're to be conformed into his image on purpose. That's God's will, right? God doesn't call you into something without also giving you the capacity. But you were talking about like the analogy for focusing on all your crap. And, but it's the movie Boss Baby, who, the two kids are running away from the nanny. And, there's one kid, he's on his bike. He's got the Boss Baby in the basket. They're riding down the road. The nanny's in the back, you know, on like what's it called? A wagon.
Oh.
A wagon or whatever. Well, anyways, his training wheels bust off, and you know, he's figuring out how to drive, and Boss Baby's throwing out all these like epic quotes, like these life quotes. Right. And so he throws out this one because this kid, he runs into his nemesis, right? Which is a tree. This tree is far off, but he's like dialed into this tree. He's like, with all his might, he does not want to run into it, but he's so focused on it that he's pointed himself right at it, right? So the Boss Baby says, you know, if you aim for failure, you'll always succeed. Right. And the kid was like, what? He's like, aim away from failure. Right. So focus on something else. But the thing you focus on becomes your target, and your focus becomes your aim. So you aim yourself at the very thing you don't want because it's the only thing you're thinking about. Right. People will be like, well, you know, I just don't want to be like my parents. Well, that's the only image they know. They don't take time to learn a different one or practice other things. They just think, this is what I don't want to be like. But then people be like, well, that's exactly what I became like, because it was the only thing you ever thought about. So repentance literally means to change the way you think. So if you find yourself going in one direction, like, oh crap, that one's not working out. Well, then about face and go into the right direction. But like you're talking about, it's not about sitting around in the guilt and the shame, because the longer you do that, the longer it takes to get out of it. You get into this deep emotional negative downward spiral, and you can live there. You can create the habits, and just that becomes like the normal way of life. So it's like by focusing on those things, it becomes the crock pot, and you're in the crock pot of suck. So when you focus on, oh, I'm not good, or these are the sins and I'm scared to, right? People are scared. Like, you know, you want to please God, but you're afraid to sin. You're afraid you're going to mess up, and then God's going to hate you. Well, that's a misunderstanding of who God actually is and what the kingdom of heaven actually is, right? When you become adopted into sonship, like you become part of the family, you don't get booted just because you ended up with a bad attitude or you bit your sister or, you know, whatever. Like you're growing in maturity, which is a process. But when you understand that while you're in the process, you're not disqualified. It doesn't, you know, because I used to be like that. I mean, you know, you have a thought and you're like, oh crap, now I need to go like confess it to somebody, or I need to do, you know, this and that. And you get all guilt and shamed about it. And it's like, until something else happens, I can't be free. And that's just a misconception. And the whole ploy is to get you so focused on that you become so terrified of sin that becomes your master. is this, because whatever you become afraid of, right, you give power to. And it's like sin becomes the very thing that you begin to worship. It's the only thing you ever think about. It's the thing you're terrified of. It's the thing you can't figure out how to beat. It's because it's the only thing you ever think about. But to be justified means that you're declared righteous, which means you come into the room, Jesus calls out your name and says, that guy right there is righteous. Righteousness is a legal term. It's not based upon your emotional state. It's not based upon the circumstance. It's a legal term, right? Your citizenship is a legal thing, meaning like you have rights and privileges because of your citizenship. So just because somebody doesn't like you doesn't mean they can just do whatever they want to you. They can't just throw you in jail or take away all your stuff, whatever. I mean, there's laws that protect you from these different kind of things. Well, being this legal term of citizenship gives you rights and privileges to those things. Well, being justified means that you're declared righteous. And the thing about righteousness, again, is that it's not based upon your emotional state, but it is based upon faith.
Yeah.
But it's like, and a couple different times, Paul talks about, the fact that the fullness of the deity lives inside of Jesus. This is like 2 Colossians 2, whatever. And in Christ, you have been brought to fullness, right? And then further down or something, it says, if you continue in the faith. It's just this concept. There is like, if you continue in the faith. But here, like this saying isn't about fear or doubt or worry. It's to push you into belief that what Jesus did wasn't based upon your mental state. It wasn't based on the amount of knowledge you had, how successful you are in your disciplines or this and that. It's faith in what Jesus did is what brings about righteousness. It's not about how many different things you can do right. It's about, could you, in Jesus' name, maybe for the first freaking time, tap into what real righteousness actually is, which isn't based upon you. It was based upon him, which gave you access to everything. So it's not about how many things you did wrong today or how many things you did right, because you can be doing the right things for the wrong reasons and it'll jack you up. You can be, trying to serve people, giving all your money, do all these things. But if your motivation is like, well, if I don't do this and God doesn't love me, it's like, I can't mess up. I do this, everything you do is out of fear and anxiety and worry and doubt. And that junk, that's where people say, well, I got burned out. You got burned out because you don't actually, you're doing good things, but they're for the wrong reasons. And so they produce malfunction. Because like fear, doubt, worry, insecurity, identity crisis, those things aren't of the kingdom. So it's like, it talks about like godly sorrow actually brings about repentance, where like worldly sorrow just wants to kill you. So if you find yourself marinating for days in sorrow, it's not from the kingdom, because sorrow from the Holy Spirit of God who lives inside of you brings about this desire to take action and to fix it. Where worldly sorrow, there's like, it's so vague. It's just an emotion. It's not clear. You don't know what to do. You don't even know if you did anything wrong, but you've got this emotion. So you're just like, oh my gosh, right? That's that frustration of just epic fog and blurriness. That junk. That's a sign that ain't from the kingdom. But yeah, godly sorrow actually brings about repentance. God is a God of function, man. For reals, though. So seeing him in the correct light and seeing yourself in the correct light is vitally necessary. So to be sanctified means to be made holy. Paul says, no, may you be. Like, may that be the state of your being. Sanctified through and through. Spirit, soul, body. Right? We're talking about the invisible. What connects us to God. What we actually are. Soul. We're talking about the mind and the heart. The conscious and the subconscious mind. Body. We're talking about this flesh thing we see every day. May you be sanctified through and through, so that you'd be epically blameless at the coming of Jesus. But like a soldier, right? Doesn't get all caught up in civilian affairs. No, instead, he's got a purpose. He's trying to please his commanding officer. An athlete wins the victor's crown if they run according to the rules. And the farmer is the first to reap the rewards. So my good peoples, to be sanctified means to be made holy, to be justified, to be declared righteous, and to be set apart for the purposes of the kingdom. Right? To be the people who establish the will of God on earth. If you see something that doesn't look like the will of God, feel free to bring in the correct image of who God is. Feel free to bring in some healing, some restoration, some wholeness, some correct thinking. Bring some peace, some joy. My good peoples, until next time, peace.